Hey there, Jeep divers. Ready for a pretty fascinating journey today?
I think so.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be time traveling, go way back
Way back.
to uncover
Yeah.
the surprising origins of modern work culture.
I love it.
You ready to dish your spreadsheets and grab a shovel?
Well, maybe not literally, but
Okay, here it is.
get ready for some eye-opening connections. We're diving into the waterfall mindset.
Oh,
And guess what? Its roots go back thousands of years
really?
to ancient Sumerian agriculture.
Wait, Sumerians? Like those folks with the ziggurats? What do they have to do with my overflowing inbox?
More than you'd think.
Okay.
They were pioneers
Yeah.
in accounting and record keeping.
Wow.
Imagine a taskmaster overseeing workers in the fields,
Hmm.
meticulously documenting every grain harvested, every hour of labor. Sounds a bit like performance reviews, but for ancient farming.
Right. So you're saying my boss is basically a modern-day Sumerian overseer. Suddenly those deadlines feel a lot more historical.
It's all about the underlying patterns.
Okay.
Rigid hierarchies,
Oh,
top-down planning,
yeah.
treating work like a predictable assembly line.
Right.
These concepts didn't just appear overnight. They've been evolving for centuries.
Okay, I'm hooked. So how did we go from Sumerian fields to Silicon Valley startups? Walk me through this evolution.
Well, after the Sumerians, the ancient Egyptians took these ideas even further.
Oh, wow.
They had specialized roles, strict hierarchies, and scribes controlling the flow of information.
Yeah, tell me about it. Some companies treat information like it's a precious commodity, doling it out in tiny, carefully measured doses.
And that mindset has a long history.
It does.
Then came Roman estate overseers,
Okay.
responsible for daily operations, labor allocation, record keeping sound familiar.
Yeah.
And during the Middle Ages,
Uh.
guilds controlled knowledge and skills,
Mm-hmm.
with masters dictating who learned what.
So it's like the original pay-to-win scheme, but for blacksmithing and weaving instead of video games.
You could say that.
Wow. But these historical patterns
Yeah.
really accelerated during the Industrial Revolution.
The Industrial Revolution.
Think of Taylorism,
Mhm.
with its focus on breaking down tasks into tiny, repeatable steps,
Okay.
or lean manufacturing,
Uh-huh.
which aim to eliminate waste and maximize efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, the iconic Ford assembly line,
Oh, yeah.
where workers became cogs in a giant standardized machine.
Okay, mass production definitely revolutionized industry, but didn't it also make work pretty monotonous?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
While efficiency skyrocketed,
Right.
worker dissatisfaction and high turnover became major issues.
Wow.
The Ford assembly line was great for churning out Model Ts,
Yeah.
but it also stifled creativity and flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to produce a different model on that line,
Yeah.
nearly impossible.
So, a good reminder that efficiency isn't always the best metric for success, especially when it comes to human creativity. Precisely. And speaking of human nature, let's shift gears and talk about motivation. This brings us to the age-old concept of the carrot and the stick,
Okay.
which has been around since people were trying to coax donkeys to plow fields.
Okay, donkeys and motivation. I'm all ears.
In 19th century factories,
Yeah.
piece rate systems became popular.
Okay.
Workers were paid per unit produced
Mm-hmm.
with penalties for mistakes.
Oh.
It sounds awfully familiar, right? Like an early version of those performance-based bonuses.
So did this carrot and stick approach actually work?
Yeah.
Or did it backfire spectacularly?
Well, let's just say there were some unintended consequences. Back in the 1980s,
Oh, no.
a group of software consultants were paid by the weight of their code.
What?
The heavier the printout, the
Understood.
bigger the paycheck.
Hold on, they were paid by the pound of code? That's wild. What happened? Did they just write mountains of useless code?
Exactly. They exploited the system,
What?
writing bloated, inefficient code just to rack up the weight. It highlights how well-intentioned systems can backfire when human nature gets involved.
It makes you wonder if we're still chasing those same carrots, even if they're digital now.
And let's not forget about the obsession with time management and productivity metrics.
Right.
From meticulously tracking individual worker output on West Indian plantations
Oh, wow.
to today's performance dashboards,
Yeah.
that desire to squeeze maximum output from labor has a long and complex history.
So maybe all those productivity apps on our phones are just the latest iteration of the Taskmaster's watchful eye. Makes you think.
Speaking of watchful eyes,
Yeah.
let's revisit this theme of division of labor and specialization.
Okay.
The famous economist Adam Smith gave a classic example of a pin factory in the 18th century.
Hmm.
Making a single pin involved 18 different steps,
Wow.
each performed by a hyper-specialized worker.
Okay.
It boosted output,
Yeah.
but also led to worker monotony.
I can imagine those pin factory workers dreaming of a world where they could use all 18 of those skills. Maybe that's why they invented rock and roll in their spare time.
That's a great point. It highlights the trade-off between specialization and creative fulfillment. And we see the same tension play out in modern companies with their departmental silos.
Right.
It raises the question,
Yeah.
do these divisions help or hinder innovation?
All right, so we've established that the waterfall mindset has deep roots, a long history, and some potential downsides. But how did it become the dominant way of working, especially in the software world? There must have been a turning point, right?
There was indeed a pivotal moment,
Okay.
but with a rather ironic twist.
Uh-oh.
It all started with a paper published in 1970.
1970.
1970.
Okay.
Interesting year. By a software engineer named Winston Royce.
Winston Royce, okay.
In it, he described a step-by-step,
Yes.
linear process for developing software.
Right.
Think requirements gathering,
Yeah.
design, implementation, testing,
Mm-hmm.
all in neat sequential phases. Okay.
Mirroring traditional manufacturing.
So, did Royce invent Waterfall as we know it?
That's where the irony comes in.
Oh.
Royce wasn't advocating
Yeah.
for this rigid, sequential approach.
Oh, really?
In fact, he was criticizing it.
What?
He recognized the inherent risks,
Yeah.
especially for large, complex software projects.
Wait, hold on. The guy who basically defined Waterfall was trying to warn people against it? That's hilarious and kind of tragic.
Exactly. It's a classic case of good intentions gone awry.
Wow.
Royce's paper was misinterpreted,
Okay.
his warnings overlooked.
Huh?
People loved the clear structure he outlined,
Yeah.
but missed his larger point,
Oh.
that software development
Yeah.
is inherently iterative,
Right.
demanding flexibility.
So instead of heeding Royce's warning, they turned his critique into a blueprint.
Precisely.
Wow.
And it had lasting consequences.
Yeah.
Waterfall, with its emphasis on upfront planning, rigid documentation,
Right.
and sequential phases.
Became the dominant paradigm for software development for decades.
But surely some people realized Waterfall wasn't working. Such a rigid approach seems at odds with the dynamic nature of software.
You're right.
Yeah.
There were critics and alternative approaches even then.
Oh, okay.
Royce himself, in that same paper,
Yeah.
proposed iterative development as a solution.
Okay.
And there were successful examples, like the NASA Mercury project
Wow.
in the 1960s.
Okay.
They used iterative and incremental development
Yeah.
to literally invent spaceflight as they went along.
So if NASA could use iterative methods to put a man in space, why were software developers stuck in the waterfall rut?
Context is key.
Okay.
Computers were relatively new.
Right?
Software development was this mysterious process.
Mm-hmm.
And people craved predictability in a rapidly changing world.
Yeah.
Waterfall, despite its flaws,
Yeah.
offered that illusion of control.
A longing for order in a world growing more complex, huh? That makes sense.
Exactly. And that desire for control profoundly impacted work culture,
Okay.
not just in software,
Yeah.
but across industries.
Right.
We see it in hierarchical structures,
Okay.
where information is tightly controlled and decisions flow from the top down.
Okay, paint me a picture.
Mm.
What does this look like in a typical company today?
Imagine a company with multiple departments,
Good.
each operating in its own silo.
Right.
Communication is mostly vertical.
Yeah.
Decisions take ages because they need approval from multiple layers of management.
Right?
There's a huge emphasis on documentation,
Yeah.
procedures,
Mm-hmm.
and risk aversion.
It sounds a bit suffocating, to be honest.
It can be.
Yeah.
And it often leads to a culture of fear and blame
Oh,
when
man.
things go wrong.
Right.
The focus is on finding a scapegoat,
Uh-huh.
not learning and improving.
So, like a giant game of hot potato, but with blame instead of a potato.
A perfect analogy.
Oh, my gosh.
Such environments stifle innovation and creativity.
Right.
People are afraid to take risks,
Yeah.
experiment, or challenge the status quo.
Right.
They just try to avoid making mistakes.
This waterfall mindset sounds like a creativity killer.
Yeah.
And now we're adding AI to the mix.
Yeah.
How does that fit into this picture?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
The answer is complex, as with most things AI.
Okay.
There's a real risk that AI, implemented within this existing waterfall mindset, could worsen things.
Oh, no.
Imagine AI automating control mechanisms,
Right.
reinforcing hierarchies,
Yeah.
making work even more impersonal.
So AI could become the ultimate taskmaster.
It's a valid concern.
Right.
Imagine AI-powered systems tracking every keystroke,
Oh, wow.
email, meeting,
Mhm.
flagging anyone who deviates from the norm.
Yeah.
Not exactly a recipe for a thriving creative workplace.
That sounds a bit dystopian. It's making me nervous.
Understandable.
Yeah.
But remember, AI is a tool.
Right.
It can be used for good or ill.
Okay, so how do we ensure AI enhances work culture, not crushes it? How do we avoid an office AI apocalypse?
It comes down to the choices we make.
Okay.
How we design AI systems, integrate them into workflows,
Yeah.
what values we prioritize.
Right.
Do we use AI to monitor and control,
Yeah.
or to empower and liberate?
So it's not just about the tech itself, but the human intentions behind it.
Precisely.
Okay.
We need to be mindful of how we use AI,
Right.
constantly questioning our assumptions.
Huh.
Are we making work more efficient and fulfilling,
Yeah.
or simply automating existing power structures and biases?
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
As we enter this era of AI-powered work, we need to be incredibly thoughtful about how we design and implement these systems.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We need to shift our focus from control and predictability
Right.
to adaptability, creativity, and human-centered design.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of seeing AI as a threat,
Right.
we can view it as an opportunity to rethink work,
Okay.
break free from the limitations of the past,
Right.
and create something truly new and transformative.
So how do we actually do that? How do
Yeah.
we move from this ingrained waterfall mindset to a more agile, human-centered approach,
All right.
especially with AI in the mix? I'm ready for some practical advice.
It starts with recognizing that AI isn't a magic solution.
Right.
It's a tool.
Okay.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill.
Yeah.
We need to approach AI implementation with intention,
Right.
focusing on human needs and values,
Okay.
not just efficiency and optimization.
So it's not just about whether we use AI, but
Yeah.
how we integrate it into our work processes.
Yeah.
The why behind the tech is crucial.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that why requires a fundamental shift in mindset.
Okay.
Moving away from the rigid top-down control of waterfall thinking
Yeah.
towards a more agile culture.
Right.
One that embraces adaptability,
Mhm.
collaboration,
Mhm.
and human-centered design.
Okay. That sounds great in theory, but what does this shift actually look like in practice? Give me some tangible examples.
Imagine flattening those rigid hierarchies
Okay.
and empowering teams to make decisions closer to the work.
Right.
Instead of relying on top-down mandates,
Yeah.
we can foster a culture of trust,
Mm-hmm.
transparency,
Right.
and shared responsibility.
Okay.
We can value individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
So less command and control, more collaborate and adapt. It's a whole different vibe.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And here's where AI can actually be a powerful ally.
Okay.
We can use AI-powered tools to facilitate communication,
Yeah.
surface diverse perspectives,
Yeah.
and break down those pesky silos between departments.
Right.
Instead of monitoring and controlling workers,
Yeah.
we can use AI to connect and empower them.
I'm starting to see the potential here.
Good.
It's about using AI to augment human capabilities, not replace them.
Exactly.
But let's be real, shifting an entire organization's culture is a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
You're right. It's not a quick fix.
Okay.
It requires a sustained commitment from leadership,
All right.
a willingness to experiment,
Mm-hmm.
and a focus on continuous learning and improvement.
Okay.
We need to prioritize responding to change over following a plan.
Okay.
And we need to value working software over comprehensive documentation.
It sounds like a journey, not a destination,
Yeah,
and one that requires a whole lot of patience and a willingness to embrace uncertainty.
exactly.
Oh.
It's about constantly questioning assumptions,
Right.
challenging the status quo, and being open to new ways of working.
Yeah.
It's about fostering an environment where individuals and interactions are valued
Okay.
and where customers are actively involved throughout the development process.
So what's one small step companies can take today
Mhm.
to start moving in the right direction? What's the first domino to topple?
Start by asking questions.
Okay.
Simple yet powerful.
Okay.
Why are we doing things this way?
Mm.
What are the underlying assumptions?
Right.
Are there alternative approaches that embrace agile values and principles? How can we use AI to empower our teams, not control them?
Just by asking those questions, we can start to unravel those deeply ingrained waterfall patterns and open up possibilities for a more human-centered future of work.
That's right.
Wow.
It's about cultivating a culture of curiosity,
Right.
experimentation,
Hello.
continuous learning,
Right.
embracing feedback,
Mm.
and adapting to change.
For our listeners who are feeling inspired to challenge the waterfall mindset and embrace Agile values, what resources would you recommend?
I highly recommend revisiting the full presentation that sparked this deep dive.
Okay.
You can find a link in the episode description.
Perfect.
It's packed with insights into the history of waterfall thinking, its impact on modern work culture,
Right.
and the potential of AI to reshape the future of work.
Excellent advice. And remember, deep divers, the future of work is not predetermined.
Yeah,
It's something we're actively creating day by day, choice by choice.
I love it.
So let's choose wisely, let's challenge the status quo, and let's build a future of work that is truly worthy of our humanity.
Well said.
Wow.
It's an exciting and challenging time, and I'm optimistic that we can harness the power of AI for good, creating a future of work that is more fulfilling,
Right.
equitable, and human-centered.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Deep Dive.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us on this epic journey through the history and future of work. To learn more, click on the thumbnail or follow the link in the episode description to watch the full presentation that inspired this deep dive.
Yes,
It's chock full of insights you won't want to miss.
for sure.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.